Okay, so yesterday we finished with this proposition. We started to prove, but not complete. So let D be a fusion category over a symmetric fusion category E. Then we have these two are algebraic integer. So the relative categorical dimension with respect to E and the relative Frobenius point dimension with respect to E. Both are algebraic integer. Okay. In fact, this one and this one is an integer, so which means that this divide that in the sense of algebraic integer. So if E is Tanakian, then the result followed by what we proved before. Because the categorical dimension of E is the order of the corresponding group, and this relative dimension or categorical dimension are this relative categorical dimension or Frobenius point dimension are the dimension of the disequivalentization. But we know that this is an algebraic integer. So in the Tanakian case, it's okay. So now we need to consider the non-Tanakian case. So if it is not Tanakian, then you consider the dueling tensor product of C with itself n times. And you consider the maximum, so you have also this one is included there. So this one is also non-Tanakian. But you consider its maximal Tanakian subcategory. So as we mentioned before, in fact, if this is non-Tanakian, then it has a maximal Tanakian subcategory of index 2. In that sense. And so we will finish the proof from here. So you can see, in fact, this has a fusion category over this maximal Tanakian. And applying the first part, so you apply the first part, we see that. So what is the first part? So what do we have? Let me write more details. We have that the dimension with respect to En of C tensor N is equal to, so this is an algebraic integer. So equal to dimension of Cn divided by dimension of En is an algebraic integer. But this wait. Did I miss something? So if E is Tanakian, the result follow by since you have that. Yeah. Okay. So you use that. So this is equal to dimension of C power n times divided by this one, which is this one. So dimension of En times 2. So you have that. So you get, which is, so maybe we don't need to remove that. And this is 2 times dimension E. No, write this. I was not correct. So N, which is 2 dimension Cn divided by dimension En. So 2 times dimension E C over N. Okay. So we have that this is an algebraic integer for all N in N. So what do we want to prove? What we want to prove is this one. Which one? This one. We want to show that this is an algebraic integer, but what we have is this is an algebraic integer for all N. So this is an exercise of number theory. Exercise. Let X be a number such that 2x power n is algebraic integer, then x, so for all n, for all n, then x is also an algebraic integer. So this is a purely number theoretical exercise. So from that, you deduce that, so therefore, the dimension C is an algebraic integer. And so this is for categorical dimension, but you can do the same for Frobenius per dimension. A similar argument apply to Frobenius per dimension of C with respect to E. Okay, so that was funny. The use of this number theory. So as far as I see, this number theoretical exercise, so it's not complicated, but it's not so easy. So be careful. Okay, so next subsection. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, we are in session 12. So we are at the half of the course, because there are 24 sessions. So 4 to 8. Fusion subcategories and grading. Okay. So let D be a fusion category over E G such that the functor E to D, so which is as usual, this is the composition E to the D to D as we where this is by definition of over E, and this is the forget full functor. So this functor should be fully faithful. Fully faithful. Then something. So let me briefly recall, not definition of fully faithful. So why we need fully faithful, and what can we deduce? So so fully faithful mean bijective on the home space. In particular, it implies, and this is very important, that so since it implies that the functor is what's the name? In the injective. Injective. So it's an embedding. It's injective, so it's easy to see. Easy to see for fusion category. So it's very simple. So in particular, so a simple object. So I guess it's a tensor functor. The tensor functor. So it's a tensor functor. Yeah. Because if the home space are bijective in particular, if you consider so you cannot have a simple object mapping to zero, because the home space of a simple object to itself is one-dimensional. So if it map to zero, it will be zero-dimensional, etc. So this should be an injection. So that's very important. It's an embedding. Embedding. And that helps a lot to understand the rest, because most of the time they consider E as a subcategory of D. But if you don't have fully faithful, you can still consider the image, but you cannot identify E with the image because it may not be injective, it may not be an embedding. But because it's fully faithful, it's an embedding, and so it makes sense to consider E as a subcategory of D. And in fact, in the paper, they identify. So it's, and of course, remember also that the fact it is fully faithful is also used to it is also required for theorem 418.3 saying that C is fusion if and only if CG is fusion. So fully faithful here is really important. Okay, so that's very important. So you take a fusion category over E such that the tensor functor from E to D is fully faithful. Then the fiber category. So what we call fiber category, but so just the disequivalentization. So what called the disequivalentization is a fusion category. So that's we are just recalling what we already know. Is a fusion category equipped with a G action, and we have D, which is the equivalentization of C. Okay. So this one you can see as an exercise. Okay. So what about now? We will consider lattice of fusion subcategory containing E. And that will be, this lattice will be in correspondence, in one-one correspondence with the lattice of G-stable fusion subcategory of C. So on one hand, you have fusion subcategory of D containing E. On the other hand, you have G-stable fusion subcategory of C. So proposition 430. So there is lattice isomorphism between the fusion subcategory D tilde in D containing E and the G-stable fusion subcategory. C tilde in C. Yeah. And this correspondence is given by D tilde is just the equivalentization of C tilde, and C tilde is just the disequivalentization of D tilde. So what we note this way, so this notation you can say what is the point. So we already explained the reason of this notation, so the meaning of this notation, but we did not really explain why it is preferable to use this notation. But we will see soon one example in which this notation makes sense. In fact, this notation makes sense when you focus on the category, the Tanakian category here. If you, for example, if we will in the coming material, we will consider several different Tanakian subcategory. So it's important to distinguish which one we are considering. Otherwise, you need to identify it with the group, etc. But it may make sense. Anyway, it makes sense in the sense of E-module, but the fact that we prefer to use that was not clear. Okay, and the second point. So very bijection between let me write. In fact, it was there is no maybe clearer to write this way also. Let me clean a little bit. Between what? So first, the fusion subcategory. So here. Otherwise, just 1 minute. That given by like that. Okay. So there is a bijection now between the sets of G invariant grading of C and so G invariant mean that CB is G stable. So we will, in fact, we will recall that. Every component of the grading is stable by the action of G. And the set of grading of D that are trivial on E. And you see here, we identify E as a subcategory of D because trivial on E meaning E is a subcategory of the neutral component of the grading. In particular, it's a subcategory. Okay, so in the statement of this proposition propose explicitly the correspondence this way, and the proof will give the other way and show that it's an equivalence. So explicitly given a grading C that, so it's not graded by group G, it's graded by some other group, such that CB is G stable, so meaning that the grading is G invariant. Here I should specify all B in B. Okay, so you have that. So we define a grading on D. As you can expect, in fact, you just take the equivalentization of the component of the grading for C. We define a grading on D by dB to be the weight. Here I'm a little confused. Yeah, I guess you can make sense. So we define equivalentization for monoidal category, but this CB, the component CB is not a monoidal category. The entire C is a monoidal category, but this is not. So I guess here you have to be careful. I guess the definition of equivalentization, you just need to take an object. So you just, yeah. I guess it's not a problem, even if it is an abuse because it was not defined this way, but so the equivalentization should be also made as a pair, and the first component of the pair should be an object here. As exactly you did this here. Yeah. Be careful, this is not a monoidal category in general. But it should not be a problem. So you do that. And so this correspondence preserve faithfulness of the grading. So if one grading is faithful, the other is also faithful. And the third point of the proposition is, so here D is not assumed fusion. D is some fusion. It's not assumed braided, sorry, just fusion. But now if you suppose now D is a braided fusion category over E. Wait. That is wait. The point I wanted to emphasize, to use that. Okay, so here you have to see. So you have to be careful because in fact, in this construction, we do not mention where you use the G invariance and this and this. So okay, you start from that. I guess you need G invariance here this to make sense. So as I said, this is not a monoidal category, but if the grading is G invariant, then you can make sense of that. So here, I guess you use G invariant. Need yeah, CB G stable. Yeah. And you need also to show that, so exercise, show. So we need what you get is also, the E should be the trivial component. You need to show that E is included in C1G. Okay. And maybe so the hint, maybe the complete proof, but the hint is that VEC is always in C1 for any grading. VEC is always the unit is always in the neutral component. So VEC G is in C1G, like that. And this is E. So up to some details, that should be the reason. And for that, you need C1 to be so G stable, I guess. Yeah, this C1 is G stable. So in particular, CG1 there is an action of, so G1 is G stable. C1 G stable. So G acts on C1. So it makes sense. It makes sense to consider the equivalentization because it acts. So this is required. Okay. So now the third point. So suppose now that it's braided over E, so because it's braided, the disequivalentization is also braided. C is also braided. Then the above lattice isomorphism mentioned in the point 1 is compatible with the centralizer. Is compatible with taking centralizer. In other words, you have, so you take some, for example, So the correspondence is by taking a subcategory and taking the equivalentization or the disequivalentization. So you take a subcategory and its equivalentization and then centralizer. That's the same as taking the centralizer of the, should write this way, of the subcategory. I don't know. I am little, I have a doubt, but it should be, yeah, like that. And then, so let's write this way. There's no confusion. And then G. Or if you take the centralizer of the disequivalentization, it's the same as to take the disequivalentization of the centralizer. And again, this is exactly the same as saying that d tilde G prime is d tilde prime G. Okay, so proof. So the first statement regarding the equivalence of lattices, this is immediate. In fact, you have the construction. You go from there like that or like that. So there is so the statement one is immediate. So you can write the details in exercise if you like. And so now what about the second point? So to get the second point, you will make, so we made this way, we will make this way and show that there are equivalents. So to prove the second point, we construct inverse map. So yeah, inverse map of the map already given in the statement. So you go from grading of D with the trivial on E, and you from that to the G invariant grading of C. So given a grading D equal B in B, dB, that is trivial on E. So remember that this means just E is a subcategory of the neutral component. Define this grading this way. C be disequivalentization. So in fact, yeah, there is also a point here we also omitted to say that we need to show that this way, this is really a grading for D. But it's okay because in fact you have a grading here, and this, in some sense, up to if you just consider the if you take the forgetful functor, this is a subcategory of that. Or the object here are object here. So the grading here good work here. So grading means that the tensor product should match with the group multiplication. So I forgot to mention that. Here, the the tensor product trivially match with grading. Because it's a grading of tensor category, not grading of just not just a grading of category. So it should match. So it match with the group structure. Tensor product match with group multiplication. Multiplication. Okay. And as I said, because the object here are object here. So you use the grading on C. But in the other way, it's a little bit more complicated because the tensor product here, this is defined as the A module. So it's you cannot see the tensor product here as a tensor product of something we already know. In the category, we cannot do like that. Here, the tensor product here is directly come from here, but here you cannot do the other way. So you need to check something on the other way. So which is, and then we will make the pause. So this is a category of A module in DP. So pause. After the pause, we will briefly explain why the tensor product match with the multiplication here. Okay, so now you define the grading on C this way, but we need to show you have something to explain why the grading match with the yeah. So when I said the tensor product, I should say yeah, the tensor product match with the group multiplication. Yeah. Anyway, so So remember that A is the regular algebra of E. So we must show that if M1 is in CB1, MI is in CBI, then M1 tensor M2. So this is a tensor in the A module category, the relative tensor product. This tensor should match with the group multiplication. And it is said that this follow since, and here we have maybe a clue for their meaning. This is a direct summand of M2. So because it's a direct summand, so we need to show why it's a direct summand, but in fact, it was in the definition. So remember the definition of that. It was more or less defined as a direct summand, so maybe my guess was correct. But in fact, you can also, so if it is a direct summand, it's okay because you have the grading, the tensor, this tensor product match with, so wait, what is M here? I forgot. Yeah, M is an object here. So you have the tensor product here. So if you just consider that, it's okay, like exactly as before. The grading match with the tensor product match with the group multiplication. But what about that? You have to be careful. It's not the same thing. You have to show that in fact this is a sub-object of that. And you see, for example, so this can be seen as an exercise. But if you use is a direct summand. So for example, what if you use, so M, the definition with co-equalizer. We have that and that, M1 tensor M2, and M. And so maybe you can see directly that this is a split epimorphism. So if this is a split epimorphism, so you directly get that this yeah, wait, no. That's not what we are looking for. Then that would be a quotient. But a quotient in the semi-simple case is a
Equalizer.
co-equalizer.
You could.
Because we are in the semi-simple case, a quotient is also a sub-object. But if I'm not mistaken, I define something directly. So let me write. In the semi-simple case, the quotient is also a sub-object. Yeah, that's right. Yes, it's right. Because the split epimorphism corresponds to a quotient, not to to get the sub-object is defined by a split monomorphism, but in the semi-simple case, it should be okay. So let's see that as a hint, maybe. Anyway, so that should be enough. Now you just need to be careful again, also with the thing. Need to show that so you assume that, so you need to get that. So you need also to show that this is J invariant. So here need also to show so exercise show that dg sorry dg is G stable. Yeah. Need to get this assumption here, J invariant. And that you should use that. You must use E is in D1. So that should be enough. Okay. So that for the point number 2. What about the point number 3? I forgot the page. Yeah, it was with the centralizer. Okay. So let C tilde. So let me make the C not look like E. C tilde in C be a G stable fusion subcategory. So clearly, what do you have? It is clear that wait, here I made a mistake. So C tilde prime G centralize C tilde G. Hence, C tilde prime G is a subcategory of C tilde G prime. Okay, so after hence this is clear, and before hence, why this is clear also? Because so what? So this is a centralizer of that. Okay, so all the object here. So this is the category of object centralizing all the object here. In particular, if you take G here, you just take objects which are here. So they also centralize here. In particular, they centralize all this object here because this is if you identify with the forgetful functor, this is included here in some sense. So this is clear. Yeah. So you, in particular, you get that this centralizes that, so this is included in the centralizer of that, which is what we said. So that's okay. Next. So what do we need to show? We need to show the other. We need to show the other way. Till G prime. I wrote this way in the till G prime. So this is clear, immediate, that we have this inclusion. So the difficulty is the other inclusion. So let phi from CG to C be the forgetful functor. So to prove the reverse inclusion, assume that you have an object in the equivalentization which centralize this. Assume, so you start from an object here and you want to show it is here. So this is an object. Yeah, because this centralizer is taken in this category. So you take an object here. Yeah, okay. So we must show that X so what? Centralize. So if you show that phi x centralize every y in C tilde, it should be enough to get what we want. C tilde, which means so every, which mean phi x is in C tilde centralize. Because then, so we must show that, then you get, because then, since then we get the reverse inclusion. So why did we get the reverse inclusion? Wait, let me check. So you start from an object here. We want to show it is here, but we show its forgetful functor is here. Yeah, but yeah. The fact that if you take x, in fact, if it is here, it means that it is the image of something here by because this x is also G. This is a G equivariant. This is the first component of the pair of a G equivariant. Then we get the reverse inclusion by G equivariance up to some details by J equivariance of phi x. Meaning that meaning phi x is in phi of CG. So x is in CG intersection C, something like that, which should be C tilde prime G. Up to some details, you should get something like that. Okay. Wait, no, this makes no sense because we identify something which, let's wait. So if I want to write, these are not in the same. This is a pair, and this is a subcategory. So what should I write? X, where is X? X is there. So here I should write phi inverse, something like that, to be correct. Si I forget what I should write. What's this? Intersection. So let me write this. Phi inverse to get that should be okay. Up to some details. Do we need so it makes sense to consider the inverse? Yeah. Or maybe you can consider the right adjoint. I don't know. But anyway, you get the idea. So I forgot where I was. So it's enough to show. Yeah, so now we said it's enough to show that, because then we get what we want. So to show that, must show that centralized, So by lemma 4.6, third point. Remember this is this lemma with the summand, etc. Direct summand. So Y is a direct summand of phi z for some z in here. Since X centralize Z, it follows that phi X centralize phi Z. And so by Y is a direct summand of phi Z for some Z. Since X centralize Z, and so hence Phi x centralize y, because y is a subobject of phi z, and applying the centralizer is the centralizer is a fusion subcategory in particular. If he centralize an object, he centralize a subobject. So remember that centralizer. So that's okay. That's enough for the proof. But the explanation, the proof of the proof is that recall that from section 3.2. If A centralize B, this implies that A centralize a subobject of B, since centralizer is a fusion subcategory. So I guess I'm not mistaken. Should be okay. Fully. Okay. So we are done with this proposition. So in my opinion, this section is more interesting to read than the previous section. So, and in fact, there is today I prepared proof, which we will do next week, which was specifically interesting. Yeah. So this is more interesting. Okay, so next corollary. Yeah, the next corollary is very important because it involves non-degeneracy, modular category. So corollary 331. Very important. So one, the braided fusion category. Fusion category. So the disequivalentization. This is non-degenerate. So here D is assumed to be braided. So yeah. Yeah, it's automatically braided because we assume we have equivalence, but maybe we should wait. Yeah, so D is braided. But by saying that, in fact, we automatically say that D is braided. But it's a little short, but anyway. Let assume D braided. Okay, so this is non-degenerate if and only if if and only if the centralizer of D is E. So that's really nice. So this is an important result. Important result. Second point. The disequivalentization is symmetric, respectively Tanakian, if and only if D is. And third point. So the isomorphism. So under the isomorphism of proposition 4.30. I guess we are talking about what isomorphism we are talking about. Yeah, about the lattice of subcategory containing E or G stable. So under the isomorphism of lattice of proposition 430, the symmetric respectively Tanaki subcategory E containing E correspond precisely to the G stable symmetric respectively Tanakian subcategory of its disequivalentization. So proof. So the first point. So you fix, you take C to be the disequivalentization. In particular, by the category equivalence we discuss too much, this D turns out to be the equivalentization of C. So we already discussed equivalence for reformulation of non-degeneracy involving the centralizer. So by theorem 3.4, C is non-degenerate if and only if the centralizer of C is trivial. So by lemma 4.6 second point. So the same lemma we mentioned before. So here is the second point. No, the third point. So exactly the same lemma as we mentioned here. So why the direct summon, etc. Using that, you get the same kind of argument with a forgetful functor, etc. You take a sub-object, direct summon, etc. You get this is equivalent. So the fact that the centralizer of C is equal to VEC. This is equivalent to the equivalentization of the centralizer is the equivalentization of VEC, which is equal to rep G, which is E. So one way is immediate. So for going from that to that, you just apply the equivalentization. But what about the other way? For the other way, you apply this lemma. You know that every object here is a summand of an object here up to the forgetful functor. And the centralizer is a fusion subcategory. For the other way. For the other way. Same as before. Same, and let me write with this with a sum star. The other way. Other way is as star. So this involving lemma 4.6. Okay. So you have that. So non-degenerate. So this is non-degenerate if and only if this equal to C. But what is that? And here we use proposition 4.30, the third point. So remember that we said that everything match with the centralizer. This one. So we'll use this kind of equality. So you get hence the statement one follow from proposition 4.30, third point. Here, what do you have? You have we just have the centralizer of G is equal to the centralizer, no, the equivalentization of the centralizer if the centralizer of the equivalentization. Here you just take, in fact, you just take this one with C tilde equals C. And that's immediate. Maybe we don't even need to. I don't know. Maybe it's immediate. But what is the equivalentization of C? This is just D by definition. So you have that. But we know that this is, so the fact that this is non-degenerate is equivalent to that equal that, but that equal that. So this is equivalent to that equal that, which is exactly what we stated. So that's very important. In fact, in the paper, they made a typo here. They wrote the second point, but it's the third point, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so what about the second point of the corollary about symmetric and Tanakian? So for second point, in the symmetric case, so you use the same proposition for 30 third point. So why it is enough to use that? Because the symmetric is equivalent to say that it is equal to its centralizer. But D is the equivalentization of C. Yeah. We see this equivalentization of D, and we know that equal that. And so we need to show that C is symmetric if and only if its equivalentization is symmetric. And this should be, again, by same kind of argument use here, lemma, etc. So let me check. I don't know if it is the third point or the second point, because remember in this lemma, you have one point for one way, another point for the other way. So maybe you have to adapt. Maybe you need to use the second point. I forgot. So maybe you don't need to care about that. Okay. And so for what about the Tannakian case? In the Tannakian case, use lemma 249. Lemma 249, let me recall. It says that if you have a surjective braided functor, between symmetric category C then C1 Tannakian, if and only if C2 Tannakian. And then you take, so this is for this lemma, and then you just take F equal the forgetful functor. Forgetful functor, which is the surjective braided functor. So it's okay for Tannakian. So we get the second point, and the third point is immediate from the second point. So the statement 3 then follow from So this is immediate, but you can check the details as an exercise. Okay, so we are almost done for today. 1 minute, I will just write the title of the next subsection. Some canonical equivalence. And then we will stop here. So no, maybe I will write. We'll put this here. Okay, so we remain 10 seconds. So for 10 seconds, can tell you what we will do in this next some canonical equivalence. It's all about that. Yeah. Here the fiber notation makes sense because we consider some intermediate disequivalentization. So you have a Tannakian category and you take a sub-Tannakian category. Or subcategory of the Tannakian category. So you consider some intermediate. And because of that, it makes sense. This fiber notation makes sense because then you don't need to say every time take G to be the automorphism group of the fiber functor, etc. So it's better this fiber notation makes sense here. So we will consider some intermediate, and in the same way that you have you have a group and some subgroup, normal subgroup, and in fact, if some intermediate will correspond to quotient, and so we will talk about that next time. So see you next time. Oh, 5. Did you see?